Army of the Dead is the brand new action zombie heist movie directed by Zack Snyder and co-written by Snyder, who wrote it along with Shay Hatton and Joby Harold. It stars Dave Bautista as Scott Ward, who is the leader of a mercenary group that are recruited by the very mysterious Bly Tanaka, who is played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who we just saw in the live action Mortal Kombat reboot. And he and his team are tasked with breaking into one of Tanaka's old bank vaults in the bottom of one of his hotel casinos in defunct Las Vegas. And the reason it is defunct is because it has become the epicenter, the ground zero, whatever you want to call it, for the zombie apocalypse. And the zombies have been completely contained only to Las Vegas. And in what is arguably the most realistic thing I have seen in a movie this year, the President of the United States has decided, you know what, I'm done with the zombie shit. We're just going to drop a nuke on Vegas and start over. Um, so Scott and his team only have about 48 to 72 hours, I believe. And then once they get into Vegas, they learn that there's a lot more to the zombies than just the mindless shuffling around that is like the stereotypical zombie. Those are there, and they're called shamblers. But there's a lot more going on with the zombies and their actual like hierarchy. And that kind of also helps to slowly reveal the true intentions of Tanaka's objective and what this team is really there for. Um, this was a movie that I was really excited to see. Once they started announcing it and the previews came out and everything, I was like, okay, this looks like it has a ton of potential. I'm a very big fan of Dave Bautista. I loved him when he was a wrestler. I loved watching him as a kid, and he has made a pretty seamless transition, as far as I'm concerned, over to acting. I would say he's probably the second best wrestler turned actor, because I'm sorry, no one's taken the crown from Dwayne, but he's been great. I've really enjoyed the most of the choices he's made have been very smart vehicles to showcase his skill. And here we get him obviously excelling with the action scenes, the shootouts, and the hand-to-hand fights. But he has a couple quiet moments here too that are pretty effective. I know that you're not really watching this movie to watch the quiet scenes and the little slight moments in between the zombie fights, but his scenes with Ella Purnell in particular, who plays his daughter Kate, are effective. They're a little bit underwritten as characters. It's a little one dimensional. You never really quite get into the meat of their relationship, but the two of them do a very good job with what they have, and the chemistry is pretty apparent. Another thing that is really kind of interesting about this movie that works but at the same time doesn't is Tig Notaro, who plays Peters, the helicopter pilot for the team, who is going to fly them out of Vegas before the nuke drops once the job is complete. And it's interesting because she was completely CGI'd in after the fact. Um, Originally, this character was going to be played by Chris D'Elia, who is absolutely a scumbag by the looks of it, and was deservedly completely erased out of this movie. Now, what Zack Snyder did was he added Notaro in basically all digitally, filming her scenes on green screen and editing her into the rest of the movie with everybody else. And her performance for, the amount that she's given to do, she's great. She's one of the only comedic relief sources throughout the movie as well. But her scenes just look weird. Like, if it's not her standing in like a helicopter or on a roof by herself and she's with the team, she just looks like too clean. She looks too clear, too focused, and the camera has to keep doing these tricks to kind of mask it, but at the same time, it just, you can't help but notice, she looks like almost a different shade of person. And she's not in the movie a whole lot, So it's not super, super jarring, but it is still something that you'll notice. They do a couple things in some of the early scenes, in particular Peter's introduction, where they try to have, Peter's on one side of a fence and Ward and Maria on the other side of the fence. And you can still tell because like the lighting's all different, but her performance is still a bright spot here for me. And I also really enjoyed the like the ideas and the flourishes that they had with the zombies, that there would be, evolution to them, and that there would be a hierarchy that they're following. I think that, the introduction of Zeus, who is ostensibly the zombie king, and then the queen, was a smart idea. I think it was a cool idea to give zombies a different touch, something that we haven't seen before, and it goes a long way towards making it a more complex story than just the basic shuffling zombies. Like there's a danger element here, and there's a type of like recognition between Lily the coyote and the group of mercenaries and the zombies. Like they understand, like, hey, we're in their territory, we have to play by their rules. Like there's an honor system here. And I thought that was a really interesting idea, but unfortunately it didn't feel fleshed out enough for me to really fully enjoy it. The movie's 2.5 hours long, and that's a lot of time to provide any type of backstory or expand on all of this lore that they're dropping, and it just kind of doesn't seem to be an interest to them. There's so many breadcrumbs and so many like hints at different things. We have the entire opening sequence that shows, how the first zombie, how Zeus was freed, how he came to be in Vegas, but we don't get an explanation of what exactly he is. They don't say zombie, they don't say alien, they don't say any, like they say they're coming from Area 51. And like that's about it for the hints for that. But then later there's scenes where zombies are getting shot and their eyes turn blue and they have like robot faces, like Terminator style. So there's a lot of different theories and things here, and it's all put in there intentionally. This is all stuff that Zack Snyder has done interviews about now that the movie is out and on Netflix, and he's kind of just said like, hey, stay tuned. We have prequels in the works. We have all this stuff coming, and maybe you'll get some more lore. And I'm sure people will enjoy that, and there are people that love analyzing all of the little details, all sorts of scenes and hints and clues. But I just personally would have liked a little bit more. So when it was over and like didn't really feel like a ton was resolved, I was kind of just like, oh, well, that's a bummer. But that's the other thing. There are prequels that have been confirmed that will apparently be hitting Netflix this year. There is Army of the Dead Lost Vegas, which is going to be all about the team in the early stages of this zombie outbreak, and kind of like explaining how they all got to where they were by the time the movie started. And that's going to have most of the cast returning. And then there's also going to be a prequel movie that was filmed last year during the pandemic that is going to focus solely on Dieter, who is the German safecracker of the team and who is the other main source of comedic relief. And he is played by, I'm going to butcher this, I'm really sorry, Matthias Schweighofer, or Schweighofer, who will be reprising the role for Army of Thieves and actually also directed the movie, which is written by Shay Hatton from an idea that he had with Zack Snyder. So Zack Snyder is very much involved in all of this, and that's the last thing I really wanted to talk about and end on is this idea of creative freedom, because Netflix, when they were promoting the movie, took every opportunity to take digs at Warner Brothers and post things like, there's only one Snyder cut of this movie, and it's very clear the amount of issues that Snyder has had with Warner Brothers, and this type of freedom, it makes a movie that is a little long and a little too much going on for me personally, but it shows a lot of faith from Netflix to just let him do whatever. It's, it's cool to see creatives and filmmakers getting this opportunity to make things like that and to have less studio interference and less hands in the kitchen, I guess. I don't know. I'm gonna just keep throwing out terrible metaphors. So this movie, overall, like, I'm glad I watched it because I was super curious about it. Delivered with some spots. Omari Hardwick as Vanderho was another very big bright spot for me. I thought he, was still just the team member with the chainsaw, but he still showed charisma. His scenes with Dieter are again a pretty high point for just light banter and humor, and that's a lot of it is how over the top the Dieter character is. But as the other characters kind of start to come on board, you really, those scenes really pick up the flow of the movie. So I'm glad I watched it. I think that it was a bold, ambitious type of idea, which kind of seems like that's just what Zack Snyder's going to be doing for now, is these bold, huge world-building type ideas. So I'll be interested to see where they go with all of this lore now in these prequel installments, and they tease a sequel pretty hard at the end. So I would be stunned if that's not announced in the coming weeks, and I'll be curious to see all of it. I can't sit here and be like, yeah, I definitely wouldn't watch that. Like, I know I'm gonna watch all of it. So for that, I will say this movie did its job. I just felt a little bit like I wanted a little bit more from it in terms of like payoff. I was hoping some of those ideas would get a little bit more of a payoff than just like teased or like mentioned in like throwaway lines. And that's it. If you enjoyed this movie or if you have a theory, please drop it in the comments. I would love to talk more about this movie. I know this is a movie that people have been really enjoying rewatching and looking for things. So if that is you, please let me know what you've been finding. I would love to hear it. Thank you for watching, and I will be back soon.